The event sponsorship chapter focuses on a few different things, from the event triangle, that's the three parts that are involved in an event, to the three-step process in event sponsorship, to the components of event sponsorship proposals. To be clear, advertising and sponsorship are different. Advertising is any paid, non-personal, clearly sponsored message conveyed through the media. In comparison, sponsorship, as defined by the chapter, is the acquisition of rights to affiliate or directly associate with a product or event for the purpose of deriving benefits related to that affiliation or association. The event triangle as related to sponsorship is as follows. First, the event provides the opportunity to attract fans and provide exposure to potential sponsors. Second, its fans seek entertainment from the event and are exposed to the various promotional activities during the event. And finally, sponsors exploit the opportunity to leverage fans through borrowed equity, i.e., the use of a sporting event to market. The hierarchy of effects model focuses on engaging potential customers, getting them from thinking to feeling to must-have. The first step is awareness, so getting people to know who you are as a business. The next step is knowledge, so once they know, they've heard of you, you need to make sure they know exactly what you do. The third step is liking, and this is to get them to like you and find out their perception of you. The fourth step is preference, so know why they want to choose you over other companies. Once you move from preference to conviction, so basically they've liked you, they prefer you, and they have some pretty deep feelings and strong feelings about your company. They think that you're the best option for them, and ultimately they'll make that purchase, which is the last stage. So ideally you'll get them to this final stage, that is purchasing your product. But ultimately you also need to educate them through and make sure they go through all of these steps so that they're aware of your company, and so they become a long-term investor. As an organization gets ready to put together a sponsorship proposal, there's a three-step process to go through. First, you want to identify the goals of the organization as related to marketing for the event, and identify some potential sponsors to reach out to. Then you want to sell those sponsors or secure a sponsorship. And then you want to maintain that relationship and make sure it's positive so that you can work with them moving forward. As the chapter indicated, there are a variety of ways and levels of sponsorship. There can be a presenting sponsor, a title sponsor, a contributing sponsor, official partners or suppliers, and sometimes the suppliers are the in-kind sponsorships like cars, gear that people wear, or naming rights. So on the left-hand side here, there's an example of the Tour de France levels of sponsorship. So the Tours Club is the highest, in which the people, average amount they spend is 3.5 million pounds. And then you have the next tier down, which are official partners, so they spend a little bit less, to official suppliers, to supporters, then technical partners. With sponsorship also comes naming rights, so there's often a rights to a legacy gift. In many cases, this could be a building or some sort of lab. There are also rights for a title sponsor of an event. So every single college football game has some sort of sponsor, like the Beef O'Brady Bowl. Then finally, a rights for a long-term partnership. So the picture on the right are all the different teams that compete in professional cycling and have their sponsors on their jerseys. Sponsors generally will want you to tell them what's in it for them and how can they get a return on their investment. So you want to understand your product that you're trying to sell and understand the audience in which you're trying to reach. So there are a couple things you can do if you're thinking about the Tour de France. So this infographic is a nice example of awareness of the event itself. So awareness seems specific to Europe and not a global audience. So you could go a couple different ways. You could try to bring in a sponsor who is not in a European market. and sell them on that and try to expand their base. Or you could try to maybe have existing sponsors or get a sponsor who wants to try to reach out to a global audience, because you still do have 50% of people are aware globally. As an event manager looking to secure sponsors, you need to figure out what the actual cost of the event is so that you can ask your sponsors for enough money so that you eventually make a profit. So you calculate your administrative staff costs, your sales costs, your servicing costs, and then you add 100% margin onto that to make sure that you can cover your expenses and ideally make a little bit of profit from the sponsors who provide you money or gifts in kind. This slide dovetails nicely with the previous slide. So to reiterate some of the points, you want to, one, talk about why you want them to sponsor the event, what they could gain, what you could gain, explain who's attending the event and why they attend. So what are those motivations that we've talked about in other chapters? And then how you're going to target the audience to get them to engage in your event. Once you've answered the questions on the previous slide, you can put together a more formal sponsorship proposal, including a cover letter, a description of the event or program, the benefits the sponsor would gain, how much you want them to invest in your event, and then a deadline for the decision so that you can move on from them if they're not willing to become part of your event. Once you have sponsors on board, you want to start to activate. So activation of sponsorship relates to the process of actively marketing and managing the sponsor's partnership with an event. It aligns with advertising, but it's more than a mere logo on a sign at an event. It refers to stimulation translating into action, and action is what the sponsor desires. So there are two types of activation. One is cross-promotion. So here you've got the Travel Channel promoting the Tour de France, and then you have cause-related sponsors. So bringing together not-for-profit and for-profit entities who share a mutually beneficial goal in an effort to increase attention and facilitate action. With any plan, evaluation is really important. So you can evaluate sponsorships by tracking website traffic if the sponsorship drove people to the website either before, during, or after the event. Sales are a good way to track after activation. This infographic shows different teams during the tour and the number of social media mentions, the sentiment, and so on, as one way to maybe evaluate if that sponsorship was worth it. Sponsorship can help events by generating the funds necessary to create a memorable one and satisfying customers. Sponsoring an event can range from an advertisement in a program to the naming rights of an event. There are a number of different ways to do that, from cross-promotion to cause-related sponsors. And in the end, you always must evaluate the sponsorship to determine if it worked for both parties.